Alright, so today, doing a video. It's going to be a two-part, not two-part, it's going to include two different things we're going to do. We're going to install a high torque mini starter, and then we're going to learn how to make a proper electrical connection. Yeah, I'm tired of seeing shitty ass electrical connections. Basic shit. So, you got an anvil. That's going to create the pinch on the ends here. Some shrink wrap. Some actual 4-gauge cable, not speaker wire, and then your high torque mini starter. And then in this case, this one didn't have bolts, so we got 2 new bolts as well. You're gonna run 2 wires on the high torque if you're converting from the factory or pre-93 starter. Those ones are gonna be a single wire, and they're gonna be wired differently. I'm gonna be showing you how to wire up the high torque. So with the high torque, you're going to run 2 wires. You're going to run the main battery cable, and then you're also going to run a signal wire. The signal wire is the additional wire that you're going to add that the pre-93 92s didn't have. So once again, you're going to have to run one of these yourself. In this case, this one didn't have it. So, and even if it did, I mean, the car has been sitting in the yard for God knows how long. But yeah, we're going to install that, and I'm going to show you how to make the proper electrical connections. All right, so I went ahead and stripped down some of the wire. Not the prettiest strip drop I've done, but it's good enough. So next thing you want to do is you want to take one of these connectors, these little ring terminals at the end, and kind of meet it up. You want it to go as far in as possible inside the terminal. That way when you add the crimp to it, it actually will have something to bite onto. So the next step, what we'll be doing is basically crimping this, and I'll show you how to do that as well. It's going to require this nice hammer and crimping tool. There's an actual tool. You don't take the hammer and you don't smash the two together. That is not the right way. Crimping tool with an anvil has the proper way to do it. The crimping tool itself is spring loaded, so basically I would set my ring terminal inside of there, and it will automatically stop where it should go. You let it sit on top of it, hold it in place. While it holds it in place, you can smack it with the hammer. You gotta hold the wire obviously, but you can smack it with a hammer and it will create the perfect pinch and hold that wire in there tight. I'll show you how the end result is in a second. Alright, so basically I have it set up inside, and if you notice, the collar of the ring terminal stops on that one insert, so that way it knows exactly where to punch it. On this side, 4-gauge by 5/16, which means it accepts the 4-gauge wire, and the hole is 5/16 in diameter. So I've already measured and know that these are 5/16, and that's the snuggest fit I can get possible. You don't want a loosey-goosey ring terminal on here, otherwise you're going to have a spotty connection. You want something that's going to be snug on there. So next thing we're going to do is take the hammer and you give it a couple swaps. Voila, would you look at that? Perfect. Now, yeah, it does have a little bit of a, unevenness there because of the collar and the fact that we just cinched it, and, it's still going to look nice because what we're going to do is take the heat shrink and we're going to cover that bad boy. All right, so this is just kind of mocking up the heat shrink on here, and I have a heat gun, but I don't like to use electricity. I have a torch. I don't put the flame on it. I just get it heated up and it shrinks, and you'll see fitment right now. But this is what's going to make it look nice and pretty, and it's also going to add a second layer of security. It's going to keep all the moisture out because I use double-sided. So double-sided meaning once it heats up and shrinks, there's a sealant inside that heats up and melts, and it squirts out the sides, letting you know it's got a good seal on it. I'll show you the end result in that in a second. All right, end result, nice and clean. You see the sealant that's poked out on the sides, letting you know everything's sealed inside as well. And like I said, this is going to add that extra layer of protection. in case that let's say the crimp was bad. This is just going to help you out a little bit more. It's not going to be, it's not a permanent thing, but it's semi-permanent. It's definitely going to hold that thing in there, and this is the proper way. Now notice I'm only showing you how to do one side right now. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take the wire, we're going to put it on the starter, put the starter in, seat the starter, fully lock it in, and leave the wire loose, and we're going to mock up the route and the distance and how much wire we need so we can tailor the wire. There's a lot of times where I see just too much additional wire that's not even necessary. Like either they were too lazy to just, trim it or whatever the case may be. But at least if you're already doing this much, trying to make a good electrical connection, you might as well cut out as much resistance as possible, which is by eliminating all the extra wire. It also eliminates a lot of extra problems, potential heat, fire, rubbing against the metal in the frame or something like that. But definitely trim up your wiring. But we're going to do that next. Okay, I lied. That wasn't the next thing we're going to do. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add, and by the way, I used roughly about 6.5 feet of 4-gauge cable. I'm going to use roughly about the same of about a 12 to 14 gauge wire for the signal. This is going to go to the solenoid. This as well is going to go to the solenoid. If you have your solenoid on the one wire style, you're definitely going to have to switch that style. Not the solenoid itself, but just some of the wiring on there, which is very basic. We'll show you how this wires up, and that's going to relate to what you need to change on your solenoid, so there's no reason to even go over that, but I'm going to show you how it gets wired up. So I'm going to add like I said, about 6.5 feet of additional cable to this. Crimp this. It already comes with shrink wrap on it. So in this case, all you got to do is just crimp it to this end right here. It against the table. All I gotta do is crimp this end here. Like I said, it already comes with the shrink wrap. You slide it over, shrink wrap it, heat it up, done. And then we just manicure the edges when we get there. All right, I went ahead and jumped ahead a little bit, sorry. But I installed the starter, new hardware, new bolts, all new wires. You can't see because of the angle, but I'll show you. I have another bad starter that I can kind of give a better explanation on them. Couple things I did, but I went ahead and I pre-ran the wire and I already tailored it, but I'll show you that I ran the wire factory style through all the loops and then all the way up to the top. I haven't mounted it yet, so coming up here to the solenoid portion of it, I already got the ends on there. So on the one wire, if you did not have that wire there and you just had this guy, what would happen was this would be on this side. And then when you would turn the key, the relay would switch from the positive side on the inside and then convert power over here. But what happens is that puts a lot of stress on these solenoids, and they're known for going out. And if anybody knows, they go out all the time. So what the mini torque does is it supplies constant all the time straight from the battery to the starter. This wire here now becomes the signal that when you turn the key, it goes from the positive side and applies power here. But instead of carrying this huge load, it only has to carry a small load of power. Look at how small this wire is. All we're doing is just sending a signal to tell it to actuate the gear drive inside the starter to get the motor running. So once again, on the high torque mini starter with the 2 wires, you put the big cable on the power side at all times, so it should have power at all times. The small wire, that guy, goes right over to the switched power side. And then on the bottom side, but yeah, you run them on the switch power side. Bada bing, bada boom. Ow! And yeah, I do have extra wire down here. You always want a little extra. You don't want it to be too tight, otherwise you'll start pulling off the connectors. But in any case, that's all ready to go. Just want to give you a quick little update on what's going on with that. Make sure you loom I know this isn't the fanciest loom right here, but once again, this guy didn't want to spend a ton of money. He just wanted to get the car running. Hasn't ran since '06. Doesn't know what quite all it needs. But we did already kind of break most of the budget just on the wire harness and install and a couple of the little parts to get it running. But yeah, that's how you wire up a high torque mini starter, converting it from 1 wire to the 2 wire. There's not very many videos that show you in detail how to do it, but I figured this would be pretty quick and simple. Alright, so this is the mini torque starter. This wire here is going to be the signal wire coming off the solenoid, so it's going to be the small wire. This one here is going to be connected to the side that's always hot, so always has power on the solenoid side, so the same side that the battery goes to. This one should be all by itself on the opposite terminal on the solenoid. So basically the small wire tells this to turn on. The big wire always keeps power to it. This just tells it to turn on. That's it. That's how simple they made it. That way you don't burn out the cylinders. They put, or the solenoids, excuse me, not cylinders. They put this little motor on here to take all that load.
Niggas see me in New York, nigga, don't talk, take off, yeah, nigga, go off. I'm off with a bag, top off, next bitch that I get, your wrist get fucked. Niggas crashing out of blood, trying to ride for a rose. Bitch flying in the boat, they stole. R.B. to the black, mama rip coat. Niggas still having posted chain R's roll. We was shooting dollars, tone yelling out Roby. It was always in me, not on me.